four principles. Encapsulation is one of the main four principles of object-oriented programming. Before we get into it, let's make a quick recap of the previous videos. So we were seeing how in a program we have data, which is going to be what determines the state of the program, and also behavior, which is the part of the program responsible from altering the data and thus the state of the program. So I'm not gonna go too much over this program because I already did it on the previous video, but it's very simple. You just have like a dog, some data about him, and the behavior that if the dog is hungry, then it's gonna change his text to his barking or sleeping, and then print that text. Is very simple. So what is encapsulation? Well, we actually briefly mentioned it on the previous video, but it consists on putting together data and behavior under some kind of container, which we're going to refer to as object. So basically encapsulation is, as the name suggests, encapsulating data and behavior of code that is somehow related into an object. So we're gonna do just that now. Now, if you recall from the previous video, you might remember that in order to instantiate an object, you need a class, which is like a template to generate objects. So we're gonna create a dog class here to do that. All right. So now we're gonna put the data from this program into this class. So we have the breed dog that talks this boolean variable, so that would be the data. We've already encapsulated the data. I can delete this. And now we're gonna do the same for the behavior. So to encapsulate the behavior, I'm gonna encapsulate it inside a method which I'm gonna call hunger. Here I can just copy the code, paste it here, and that's pretty much it. Now I can delete this as well. So now we've encapsulated the data and the behavior of the whole program. So that's the main concept of encapsulating. Very important concept. Now we're gonna look into how to actually make this class instantiate a dog object so we can use it. So to do that, we declare a variable of the type dog, and now to actually create the object, we do it with new and name of the class. So this is gonna assign this new object into this variable dog. Okay. Now, how do we actually access the data or the behavior? So methods. Well, we type the name of the object, then dot, and here you can see that IntelliJ actually already suggests the names of variables of data or methods behavior. So I could do something like read equals ASCII, or I could also call the methods as well. But you're never gonna do this. This is a very bad practice. Why is that? Let me open Paint here. So we're seeing how with encapsulation you encapsulate data. It's a bit too small. Let's make that a bit bigger. Encapsulate data and behavior of stuff that's related. So here you have this field. Encapsulate data like that, and then behavior in the form of methods. Right. So this way we already know, we've been talking about this so far. But now there is the second part, and that is that you generally don't need to expose everything. Like, and there is no need for me to expose all the variables if they don't need to be exposed in order to work with the object. So for example, imagine I only need to expose these two, and that I only need to expose this method. The advantage of this is that it's a bit more secure, as if imagine you're working with someone else and you don't want other people to touch this variable, because it's a variable that you only use inside the class, and also if you change it might break the object somehow, and same applies for the methods. So it's a bit more secure in that regard. Another reason is that someone who's working with the object will not have vision into this data or methods that are like basically useless to work with the object. Like someone who's working with it does not need to see them, so it makes it a bit easier for them if they're like seeing less information. They can think of the class or object as a black box to work with. So yeah. Now, how do we actually expose the data? Well, first off, we're gonna make the data private. All data should be private by default. And the reason is, well, the thing that we just discussed about right now, because it's more secure and you only expose what needs to be exposed. Okay, so how do we expose it? We expose it with new behavior methods. So we're gonna generate what's referred to as getters and setters. And what's a getter and a setter? A getter is gonna be a method that exposes a variable. So here I'm gonna say get breed and return breed. The name doesn't matter, it could be whatever, but for conventions just try to stay with get and then the name of the variable. In camel case, that's how usually is written. So these are referred to as getters. And then there's also setters, which are the methods that you use to expose, modifying the variable. Note how I wrote breed like this, that breed. This is to distinguish between the breed that is one passing by parameter and the breed of the class. Otherwise it will be hard to distinguish. Okay, so this is getters and setters. Again, remember that you don't necessarily want to expose all the variables, nor all the methods. So now I'm just gonna generate a getter for Husky, but not for text, because I don't need to expose the text variable for any reason. Oh, breed. It's not get Husky, it's get breed. Sorry about that. Okay. Oh, get. I wanted to expose the get is hungry variable. Sorry about that. Alright. And now the setter for the same variable. Oh, this is a boolean. Okay. So the same way we generate the setter, this that is hungry equals is hungry. Alright, we've successfully exposed the data that we want and the behavior. You might think it's a bit of a hassle to do this, but again, it does have its advantages, as we just saw. So that's the main idea of what encapsulation is. Encapsulating data and behavior that is related, one. and secondly, only exposing what needs to be exposed. Now, if you only care about the theory, you can stop the video here if you want. Next, I'm just gonna go over how this would actually work. So here you can instantiate the data through the setter methods. So I'm gonna set this to true and set the breadth to husky. Then I'm gonna call the behavior that we encapsulated earlier. So hunger. If I recall correctly, this code is what we had here before on the procedural program. And finally, I'm just gonna get text through the getter method. So dog, again the object, just through the object. Dot get text. Okay, I say I wasn't gonna expose text, but I actually need to expose text. Only the getter though, not the setter. Yeah, if this was another example with more variables, you wouldn't need to necessarily expose all of them, but you get the idea. Alright, so now I'm gonna run the program. You see that says husky is barking, and if I change this to false, it will print husky is sleeping instead. Here we go. Now, a more convenient way of instantiating data that people generally do rather than this is by generating a method here, like a behavior, in which we pass down the data on the moment that we're creating the instantiating the object. So here you see that this is a method, and you might wonder, can I pass parameters here? Yes, we can. So to do that, we're gonna generate this a method that has the same name of the class. This is very, very important. And here we're gonna pass on the parameters that we want. So in this case, I want the breed and is hungry. I could also put text if I wanted to, but it's not necessary. Again, encapsulation only instantiate what you need to, and not anything else. So here I'm just gonna instantiate this data same way I did with the setters. And now I'm gonna pass it down here. Breed husky and is hungry true. And you can see it's a bit more easier than having to use the setter methods for instantiating the object. The setter and getter still have utility, like maybe later in the code you wanna like just instantiate one, just set one value or get one rather than all at the same time. But yeah, so now I'm gonna execute the program again. See, husky is barking, and if I change this to false, then husky is sleeping. Alright, so that's the main idea of encapsulation. Again, quick recap. You encapsulate data and behavior that is related. And you also only expose what needs to be exposed. All the data should be private by default. So now if I were to work with someone else, I could like send them, I could tell them, hey look, I have this dog class. If you can pass down the breed and tell the dog is hungry or not. And then if you call hunger, it will change the text to barking or sleeping, and they don't need to know about all the inner working of the text of the class. I mean, this example is a bit silly because it's very simple, but if it was like a more complex class, then it will be more convenient. Alright, that's it for this video. See you on the next one, which is going to be about abstraction.